Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to tackle one of the most fundamental, absolutely crucial parts of cloud computing, AWS Identity and Access Management, or IAM for short. It's all about one simple question: who gets the keys to your digital kingdom? So, let's dive right in.
Okay, so let's imagine this for a second. You're building a massive house. Would you just hand over a master key that opens every single door to every single person on the job site? No way, right? Of course not. Well, that is the exact problem that IAM solves, but for your stuff in the cloud.
So here's how we're going to break this down in 5 simple parts. We'll kick things off with our construction analogy, then we'll introduce the key players. After that, we'll actually look at the rule book, see how those rules get applied, and then wrap it all up with why this is so incredibly important. All right, let's start by laying the foundation. We're going to really lean into this idea of your cloud account being like a giant construction site.
I mean, just think about it, right? A plumber. They need to get to the pipes, but they have absolutely no business touching the main electrical box. The painters, they need to get to the walls, but they definitely shouldn't have the key to the main tool shed. See, every single job has its own specific needs, and the whole game is about giving people the exact access they need to do their job, and nothing more. This is the core challenge in the cloud.
Okay, so now let's translate our construction crew into the language of AWS and meet the main characters in the world of IAM. So first up, you've got your user. This is super straightforward. Think of this as John the plumber, or maybe Teresa the electrician. It's a single person, or maybe even a single application that has its own unique username and password to get in the door.
Then you've got groups. Now this is where it gets efficient. Instead of trying to manage access for every single painter one by one, you just create a painters group. Any rule you apply to that group is instantly given to everyone in it. It's all about managing teams, not just individuals.
Okay, now this next one, this is a big one. It's the role. A role is probably the most powerful concept here because a role isn't a person. It's a job title. It's a hat. Think of it as the plumber hat. That hat comes with all the permissions needed for plumbing. So, any user who needs to do that job can temporarily put on the plumber hat. They assume the role and get exactly the access they need.
So that begs the question, right? How do we actually write down the rules for what that plumber hat or developer hat can do? Well, that's where the policy comes in. The policy is the official rulebook. It's a document that lays out in plain text exactly what actions are allowed and what actions are denied.
And that actually leads us to 2 main ways of thinking about these rules. The first is role-based access control, or RBAC. It's pretty simple. Your access is based on your job title. You're in the plumbers group, you get access to pipes. That's it. But sometimes you need a bit more flexibility. And that's where attribute-based access control, or ABAC, comes in. With ABAC, access is dynamic. So an electrician gets access to a specific wall, but maybe only for the next 2 hours, and only if they're on a specific project. It's much more granular.
All right, so we keep talking about this rule book, this policy. What does one of them actually look like? Let's peel back the cover and take a look inside. Okay, I know what you're thinking. That looks kinda scary, right? A big block of code written in a format called JSON. But I promise you, it's way simpler than it looks. Once you know the secret, it reads just like a simple sentence.
See, every rule, or what we call a statement, inside that policy is basically just a simple sentence. And every sentence has 3 key parts: an effect, which is the verb, some actions, and a resource, which is the noun.
First, you have the effect. This is the verb of our sentence, and it's the most basic part. It's the big, simple yes or no gate. It literally only has 2 options: allow or deny. That's it. Next up are the actions. This is a list of the specific things you're allowed to do. So if we're talking about cloud storage, an action could be something like get object, which means read a file, or list bucket, which means see what's inside a folder.
And finally, every sentence needs a noun, right? The thing you're acting on. That's the resource. This could be a very specific file or a single folder, or like you see here, it could be an asterisk, which is just a wild card that means everything. So this policy sentence says, we will allow these actions on all resources. Simple as that.
Okay, so we get it. We have these rule books, but where do we put them? It turns out you've got 2 main options, and where you attach the policy really changes how it works and who holds the power. First, there's an identity-based policy. The best way to think about this is like an ID badge that you hand to a worker. That badge lists every single room they can enter and every tool they can use. The key here is that the policy travels with the person, or with the role. It's attached to their identity.
Now, the other way to do it is with a resource-based policy. And instead of a badge on a person, think of this like a sign posted on a door. The sign on the server room door lists, by name, exactly who is allowed to enter. The policy lives on the thing you're trying to protect, and it specifies the principal, which is just a fancy word for the user, who's allowed in.
All right, we've talked about the who, the what, and the how. Now for the most important part, the why. Why does any of this matter? What's the real payoff here?
Well, it's all about moving from total chaos to having real control. It's about efficiency. You're not making custom rules for every single person, you're just creating roles like developer or teammate. That makes it scalable. A new developer joins the team, you just give them the developer role, and you're done. And most importantly, it's about security. This whole system is built around what's called the principle of least privilege. It's a simple idea. You only give people the absolute bare minimum access they need to do their job and not a single thing more.
When you boil it all down, it really comes back to this one core idea. IAM is the bouncer at the door, it's the foreman on the job site, and it's the security system for your entire cloud environment all rolled into one.
So there you have it. You now understand how the rulebook works, how roles give people the right keys at just the right time, and how policies make sure all the rules are followed. You're in control. So my question to you is, now that you hold the keys, what's the very first rule you're going to write?